At that time, there are 4 counties, Zhangye, Jiuquan, Dunhuang, and 2 passes, Yumen Pass and Yangguan Pass, which is where I am at now. There's not much that you can see at the moment. That's mainly because of the sandstorm this morning. But if you look further to the mountains, the barrenness is just a facade. Behind it is thousands of years of history. The spirit of the Silk Road has been inspiring us from generation to generation. In 2013, General Secretary Xi Jinping raised the concept of Belt and Road initiatives in Kazakhstan, and this year marks the 5th anniversary of the proposal. That's why we take this opportunity to come back to Yangguan Pass to learn more stories about the hardships and stories of our ancestors in their process and endeavors to open up the ancient Silk Road. And that is also the theme for today, the poems and the faraway destinations. The Yangguan Pass and the city of Dunhuang are mentioned in many poems and writings. If you can remember any of these kind of writings or poems, you can post it on our bulletin board. And one of the most famous poem is also remembered by a lot of Chinese people, and the Yangguan Pass at that time, at the ancient time, is a symbol of a very far away place, but now we can reach it at ease. As President Xi Jinping once said, no matter how far the distance is, as long as the hearts are close, we can take the first step and walk together, hand in hand, towards harmony and togetherness. Now let's meet our guest today, Ms. Wu, who is working at the Yangguan Pass Museum. He's the vice director of the museum. So you've been here for many years. What is your deepest impression here? And can you quote any of the poems? There are many. But today, from where we're standing, you can see the vast Gobi Desert and remind me of Wang Han's poem. It's a poem depicting the cruelty and cruelty of the war and of the battleground. And the generals and soldiers, when they march onto the battlegrounds, they have the ambition to win, but also the preparedness of not coming back. Before the Silk Road was formed, the area where we're standing is there was a lot of wars and battles between different ethnic groups. So there are a lot of ethnic groups, and one may take over this place for one day, and another might conquer it in a battle and take over this land. Therefore, the generals and soldiers have to use this place as a garrison to defend our homeland. And their work is actually the foundation for the opening up of Silk Road. So from wars, battles, to the to the travels of envoys and businessmen, we have undergone a lot of hardships and actually very long period of time to achieve that. According to historical records, the Dunhuang has become one of the biggest capitals for businessmen from the central China and other ethnic groups. So it's like the ancient Shenzhen or Shanghai. Many ethnic groups, they coexist peacefully together and do business together. And you can imagine what that was like. Right now, the Yangguan Pass is buried in the sand and sandstorms, and we are now at the ancient site of the Yangguan Pass. So we still need more discoveries and more research on the exact location of the Yangguan Pass. So can you tell us more about the Yangguan Pass? Experts, historians, archaeologists, and artists, how do they communicate? How do they travel through the Yangguan Pass? And what would be the next destination if you go through the Yangguan Pass? So the Silk Road started at Chang'an, which is today's Luoyang, and then to Yangguan Pass. And if you travel further west, you will enter the Xiyu area, the west region. So the western area can be interpreted as the Xinjiang Autonomous Region area, and even more extended to the Mediterranean area. So if you're outside of the Yangguan Pass, you're actually out of your hometown, you're abroad. But at the same time, you're feeling it as an outsider, as a traveler, you're working outside, but at the same time, you're facing more opportunities. So there are a lot of people traveling through the pass. And many travelers even visit this site frequently, several times a year. This is quite an important pass at the Asian Silk Road, contributing a perfect platform for business and personal exchanges back then. What is if you look afar, you can see a very big cartwheel, and you can imagine that ancient times, envoys such as Jung-Hwan would have to carry this kind of cartwheel. It must be quite difficult back then. Sometimes they also use camels to travel, but even with such hard natural conditions, the business was still quite busy back then. Here you can see some passes that is like the passes of the Great Wall. And at this side is the site for the remains of the Yangguan Pass. There are also several theories as to where the site actually was. And there are a lot of historical records according to the waters, the rivers, and the ancient towns. There are also a lot of cultural relics here. If you dig here, it's very likely that we'll find treasures from the Han or Tang dynasty. there are also a lot of historical sites for relics, proving that back then this is quite a busy place with a lot of residents. This is quite a vast area, about 5.5 square kilometers. Now we are facing the south, and if you go through this way, you will cross the snow mountain into the area of Qinghai. But there are still some difference of opinion when it comes to the exact site of the historical Yangguan Pass. I will still leave that question to the historians and archaeologists. Here you can see a vast and plain area. What's this for? It looks like a road. This is known as the Yangguan Dao, which is a very household saying among the Chinese people. It's a vast and wide road going from east to the west because it goes through the Yangguan Pass area. It is known as the Yangguan Road or Yangguan Dao, and it's almost a symbol for plain and easy travels. It is very wide, and it is also very flat. Of course, back then, it will receive thousands of travelers on a daily basis. Therefore, a narrow road would not be sufficient to accommodate such a big number of travelers. The construction of the Yangguan Road is also not easy. For our viewers, does it remind you of any sayings or poems or ancient writings of the Yangguan Pass? Here are a lot of poems on the Yangguan Pass. Here is a verse of poem that is mentioned by our vice director, by Wang Han. Here it mentions some very important concept, grapes, for example. A grape is not originated from China. It is actually from the Western countries, from the Western regions. If you look at this side, you can see some of the houses that is used for the drying of grapes. But grapes, as I said, is not originated from China. It was produced, it originates from the Western regions and then was carried to the central Chinese region through the Silk Road. And the last two sentences of this verse is a sharp contrast with the first two sentences because it depicts the cruelty of battlegrounds. On this corridor, you can see many similar poems. So what are the designing concept of this? The poems describing things and stories at the remote areas, at the bordering area, is a pride and a crown jewel of Chinese poems. So if you come to this land, you observe this big this panoramic scenery, sometimes it will remind you of a lot of poems. One of the most famous poems, Wang Wei, actually visited this place, and he wrote a lot of poems at this place. He was greatly inspired by the scenery. He depicts the sunset and the desert of this place. Without visiting this place, without actually taking in these panoramic scenery, it is quite impossible for him to write this kind of verses. That's why we decided to put all of those poems on the corridor that we just visited. We receive many guests each year. And here you can see is a beacon tower. It is very well preserved. The Yangguan Pass is situated at a high ground, and the mountains can serve as a shield, and that's where also the people would normally construct beacon towers. It is used to lit up fires, to pass signals from tower to tower. It is also part of the Great Wall in Han Dynasty. The Great Wall in Han Dynasty actually passes through this place, right? The Great Wall is actually a concept of the traditional Chinese defense military system. To the north of Dunhuang, at that time, the area is quite flat. That's why this Great Wall was constructed here. And also the beacon towers were built. Whereas around the Yangguan area, it's situated at a very high ground. The beacon tower is different from that near Dunhuang. Instead, at the roadside, you can see some high dunes that is constructed by gravels, which is also another type of defense system. So in these high grounds, they will be using the mountains as the shield and also the location to build the beacon tower. At roadside, they will have to use gravels to construct this kind of watchtower. At that time, there are 4 garrisons. So what are the garrisons for? They are what we know as like a military base. It's a command, central command. In order to safeguard this area, and also when there is no enemy, there's no battle, they will be doing some farm work here. So when Zhang Qian went to the western regions as an envoy, there were no predecessors before him. But after he opened up this route, the more important thing is how to protect this route. As the famous poet Wang Wei once said, once depicted in his poem, this place Anxi is a very important garrison at that time to safeguard the security of the Hexi corridor. This road actually existed for many years, but it was not until Zhang Qian went here as an envoy that this place become one of the most important corridor and path for businessmen and other personnel. So since the travel of Zhang Qian, many these beacon towers were built, and the Great Wall was built, and garrisons were sent here to safeguard the safety here. So it's one of the earliest infrastructure back then. There is a famous saying in Chinese, a proverb in Chinese, that is, if you want to be rich, you have to build roads. It's an important facility to facilitate communications between businessmen and other personnel. So, as I said, this road existed for a very long time, but there were very few communications and exchanges of personnel. That is because there is no guarantee, there is no security measures, there's no infrastructure. So during the course of history, we've seen the building of residential area and markets, but now they are all buried in the sand. But with the opening up of the 21st century Silk Road, we see more and more rejuvenation of this area, and also there are a lot of visitors. So does the raising of the concept of BRI serve as a very important function to the Yangguan Pass? For sure, it can help us to better protect the historical relics along the route, because we receive more visitors from all over the country, even the world. Therefore, it will call for better protection for these relics. The Asian Silk Road is no longer serve as an important commute or a transportation means of transportation today. It has been replaced by many modern means of transport, but it embodies the Silk Road spirit, which is peace and development, inclusiveness, and win-win. Therefore, this kind of spirit is still carried through even to today. At the time, an activity is held right next to the Yangguan Pass Museum. It's a poem reading contest. And now let's take a look and see what the situation is like right now. Our ancestors used to ride on horses and sing poems, transporting silk and tea, passing on friendship and smiles. And they walk through this road to Chang'an and to the western regions. Jung-Hwan has witnessed it all, the future and past of Dunhuang. After thousands of years, it still stands here with its beacon towers, bringing us back to the glory of Han and Tang dynasty. Jung-Hwan was established during the Wudi period of Han dynasty, serving as an important juncture to the Silk Road. It used to be a battlegrounds, but then it becomes one of the most busy markets in China. Standing here, I can almost see what it was like thousands of years ago. The busy Silk Road, the market. More than 1,000 years ago, in the city of Chang'an, spring has just came, and there are beautiful blossoms. The guest leaving the city wrote a poem that has become household and become a household poem and one of the most beautiful verses for thousands of years. It's still remain mesmerizing even after so many years. This poem was written by the famous poet Wang Wei, depicting the beautiful spring morning of the city of Chang'an.
劝君更尽一杯酒，西出阳关无故人。劝君更尽一杯酒，西出阳关无故人。出塞王之涣，黄河远上白云间，一片孤城万仞山。羌笛何须远杨柳，春风不度玉门关。羌笛何 何须远洋流？春风不度玉门关。古老的阳关，多少有意的使者经过你，从欧亚往
Many
返，
friendly
东
envoys
西
pass
方文
through
化的花朵
the Yangguan
在
Pass,
身旁绽
spreading
放。
seeds of cultures from east and
你用
west.
偶尔间的状
This beautiful
态
Yangguan
出
Pass
身打扮，从容的领带
welcomed
在你脚
guests
下
from home and abroad,
从
and the Silk Road
到陶的古道
meanders from the Yangguan Pass.
目光与目光的交融，我们呼唤心灵。
We look forward to the exchange of hearts and sights.
名声远扬，
The ancient Silk Road and
这条
the
路
modern
从
Belt and
文化
Road
圣殿人类敦煌出发，这条
are
路
both
在我们身后曾千
cultural
年阳
road,
关
the road of
延
bearing
伸
of
不
cultural
染
bearings and
这条路
economic bearings
唤起了我们
extends
与世界
from
交
the
流的
Yangguan
手臂
Pass,
这条路
and
架
it
起了我
is
们
an
东
important
西方
juncture
沟通
for
的桥
the
梁
exchange
这
between China
就是
and
阳
the
关
West regions.
这就是敦煌，这
This
就
is
是
Yangguan, this is
丝绸
Dunhuang,
之路，
this is the Silk Road.
这就是一座岁月的丰碑，这就是
It's a
一道
milestone in
绚丽
history
的彩虹，丝路
and
的历
also
史
a beautiful
在这里
rainbow.
延续，
The history of the Silk
在这
Road
里激荡
continues
友
here,
谊的诗篇在大地铺
and
展，
the friendly verses continue to be written here.
这就是矗立千年的阳关烽燧，
This is
一
the
座
Yangguan
不朽
Pass.
的丝路丰碑，一
It
座
is forever
不
a
朽的
monument
丝
in
路
Silk Road.
丰碑。
接下来，让我们掌声有请我省著名的高音歌唱家张杰为我们带来女
Now
声独
let's
唱《
welcome
不忘初
Ms.
心》。
Zhang Jie to give us a singing performance.
大家晚上好。
初心是暖壶红船，点燃的是你；初心是金刚山上眺望的黎明。信念坚如铁，信仰铸千金。
好的。其实刚才我们从孩子们他的吟诵当中不断的一遍一遍的说。
From the reading of poems by the children, it repeated again and again the most famous poems by Wang Wei.
但是现在
It tells you to drink one glass more of wine because after you pass, you go through the Yangguan Pass, there will be no old friends.
再远的
But
到来，
with the opening of the
我们在
um,
通过这个
21st century Silk Road, even if you went through the Yangguan Pass, you will still meet a lot of old friends.
待会可以一项一项的来剖析。首先说的是这个和平合作。为什么要说这个和平合作呢？就是
There's the peace and cooperation is a very important concept to Silk Road. The opening of the Silk Road is not relying on war horses or spears, but on friendly exchanges, which is also mentioned in the BRI forum last year. We do not rely on any political conflict or hegemony, but joint development between China and other countries so that the other countries can all hitchhike on China's express of development. This is a very important figure. The famous envoy Zhang sculpture stands here. He was captured by the Xiongnu people many times, but he managed to come back to Chang'an safe and sound. He is also a model for a lot of envoys afterwards, because his concept is not we shouldn't depend on military power, shouldn't rely on military power or hegemony to conquer other people. It actually depicts and reiterates, echoes with General Secretary Xi Jinping's concept. He is a very well-respected man, a very dignified and righteous man. He has a resilience to him. He received a Han Wudi's order to go to Xiyu, and he managed to do that despite all of these hardships and setbacks. The Silk Road is only prosperous because of this peaceful coexistence between different ethnic groups along the road. When it was firstly built, the Han group is greatly integrated with other minority groups and constituting a very peace and harmonious situation. But if the Han group is still at war with other groups, with other minority groups, it will be impossible for such a road to become prosperous. The second important concept in Silk Road spirit is openness and inclusiveness, which is also seen everywhere here in Dunhuang. At the poem reading event, there are many dancers behind them. They are dancing the traditional Dunhuang dance, which is actually a product of openness and inclusiveness. Because Buddhism is passed from through the Silk Road, through Yangguan. It is this road was considered an artery connecting the east and the west, and the famous Mogao caves does not happen in one day. It is only after this road security was ensured, more communications on the cultural, economic, and other fronts become more and more prosperous. It was back then, only after then, that the Mogao caves were built. It is a product combining both cultural features from east and west. It is it's a perfect combination of East and Western culture. The Silk Road does not only connect the geographically Asia, Europe, and Africa. It connects more civilizations such as the River Nile and the Indian River and the Yangtze River and Yellow River in China, and collects all of these rivers as well as the Asian civilizations. For example, the ancient Egypt, Babylon, and ancient India and China. We have to have a very open mind to all of these external cultures and foreign exchanges. Without communication exchanges, there will be no development. This is the Jung-Hwan Museum. It is a compound. Inside the museum, there are many relics and exhibits about the Silk Road. Here is a map of the Asian Silk Road, extending. It starts from Chang'an, extending all the way to the west. It has 3 routes. Go through Xianyang. The northern route goes through Xianyang to Guyuan, to Jingyuan of Gansu province, to Zhangye. The main road of the direction of the Silk Road is generally coming from the west from the east to the west, and the eastern route actually follows the direction of the rivers. And there is the northern route coming to Yumen Pass to the west, and the southern route goes through the Yangguan Pass. At a later period, there is the new north route. It comes through Hami and Turfan Basin. That is the artery of the Silk Road, but in different regions there is also a lot of branches. There were also a lot of branches. So there are a lot of regional and ethnical communications, and even international communications. Whether you take if you take the north road or the southern routes, you have to go past Dunhuang. It is a very important juncture to a lot of the branches and arteries of the Silk Roads. It is at a very important strategic location. Do you have any relics to prove the cultural exchanges back then? The Silk Road is sometimes thought of as a national strategy, but it actually connects closely with our daily lives. It largely enriches our material life and spiritual life. Here you can see some of the devices, some of the accessories used on horses. There are still many ancient tombs that have not been excavated, and so we may find more of these. At that time, the camel and horse cart are the main means of transport. And these are some of the plants that is transported to the central China from the western regions. For example, here you can see grapes, red beans, and alfalfa, walnuts, radish, or carrot, apricot, peach, pepper. Therefore, the Silk Road is not only important for cultural exchanges, but also it has a lot to do with the improvement of the common people's daily life. The third concept to the Silk Road spirit is learning from each other. We do have a lot to learn from each other. For example, Buddhism, Islam are all communicated through the Silk Road to China, and a lot of concepts such as dialectics are passed to the Western region and become a foundation for Western philosophers. Other examples such as mining technologies, and even if today we cannot break off these ties, this kind of mutual learning and communication can bring development that is the same story from ancient times to today. It is the truth. You have to have a stable environment on top of that in order for this place to become more prosperous and developed. In this exhibition hall, you can see that it is about the two important passes, Yangguan Pass and Yumen Pass. This is part of the wall of the Yangguan Pass, and you can see some of the soldiers guarding the security and the stability of this area. It is only with this kind of guarantee can we achieve economic and cultural development. Here is an important chariot, which is used as an important means of transport. Here's the Great Wall, the beacon towers. Here you can see the location of Yangguan Pass and Yumen Pass. And some beacon towers. At this end table, you can also see some oases. That's where the Yumen Pass is located. There are many poems about Yumen Pass and the Yangguan Pass, but most of the poems conveys the concept that this is faraway places. This is in the middle of nowhere, but right now the situation has been changed. And the ecological condition of this place is also improving. With all of these relics, we can feel But at one side, you have wars and soldiers. On the right-hand side, you see the passing of and communication of culture and farm goods. So on the left-hand side, you have wars and soldiers, and the right-hand side, you see a harmony and common prosperity. So this is the traditional way of paying tribute, and we would use the left hand to cover the right hand because the left hand symbolizes peace and harmony. And I think that's a symbol that friendship and prosperity always trump wars and tensions. From the very beginning to today, we see more and more communications. None of it rely on war horses and spears, but on camels and goodwills. The concept of harmony is also core to the Chinese philosophy, and which is also become more and more popular among Western countries. We're not trying to build any kind of alliance or circle. We're not trying to force any of the concept that we have on other people. The core concept of BRI is mutual understanding and communication in order to reach common prosperity. More and more young people now come to the Yangguan Pass. In the past, before, we see more tourists from Japan, from South Korea, but today more and more guests from our mainland will come to this place. They come here not only to relive the situation, the scenery of the poems, they come here to seek the roots of the Chinese culture. This museum is not a clone, it's not a model of the Yangguan Pass, Asian Yangguan Pass. It's actually a recreation of what Yangguan was like. It's an experience for the guests. Right now we are entering the Du Wei Fu, which served as a function of the modern custom back then. And this is also where the garrison was located back then. You come here, you stamp your passport, and you can go in or go out of the country. Can also give you some supplies to ensure your safety. Now let's experience firsthand how you go through the Yangguan Pass. You have to first pay your tribute to the officer. At that time, the officer would be quite busy because there are a lot of personnel coming in or out of the pass. Here you can see some of the ancient passport. And they are, of course, copies of the ancient version of the passes. it says access to Yangguan Pass.
关牒也叫做关照，你看，就来一次。也有一些人我们讨论说是日本人经常讲的说，请多多关照，关照关照，是不是和这个关照是有关系的？
It also, this kind of saying, 关照, also has bearings on the Chinese language.
有一些人就说，就是当时汉唐时期在这里领取的这个通关文牒，我走丝绸。
People wonder if you have the passport, you can go through the Silk Road. That means you have even more access than today when you have the passport. Today you have to get the visas, which is true. Back then at Han Dynasty, it was actually more open and inclusive. And you do have better access if you have the ancient passport. Without such a busy exchanges, we would not see the building and construction of the Mogao caves. So Dunhuang is known to be at the location of the throat of the Silk Road. After 2,000 of years since its building, the World Cultural Exhibition will be held in Dunhuang and will permanently be held in Dunhuang. We have a lot of guests visiting our museum, and after they listening to our introduction of the history of Dunhuang, they would be very impressed and deeply felt why the permanent location of the Congress was determined to be held here in Dunhuang. It is known as the ancient Beijing or Shanghai, the earliest symbol of opening up, and one of the most prosperous towns in ancient China. This kind of openness and inclusiveness continues until today, even until today, and we're opening wider to the outside world. For example, I'm here to get my stamp. I want to go past the Yangguan Pass. There are some procedures you have to go through. It's like a customary system. You have to make an application before your travel and receive your visa, and here the officer will verify your visa and then give you a stamp so as you can go through the pass to the western region. As you can see, we have a very stringent system of customs system, even at the ancient times. At that time, it was only the big names, the officials, the special envoys, can get this kind of passes. So it is not quite common for the people to come to common people to come to outside of the pass. So friendly diplomatic relations is an important foundation for friendly exchanges. Back then, this is quite far away from the capital. There are special delegation to do business. But despite that fact, this travel was still quite dangerous and difficult. Today, it is much easier because we have a lot of modern transport, such as railways and roads. A lot of people actually like this activity because after listening to the stories in the exhibition hall, you can come here and experience what it was like to be an envoy back then in Han or Tang Dynasty. Here are several stamps to grant you the access. This is quite a formal ceremony because I will be facing a lot of uncertainties after I exit this pass. Now let's go to the Yangguan Road. Do you have anything to declare? And you also have to go through security check. You have to identify with the officer how many horses you're taking, how much money you're taking. If you are not up to the standard, you will be sent back. And also, back then, without pictures, you have to carry a painting of you to make sure that you are to verify your identity. Right now, I feel quite excited. Today, wherever you go, you will meet Chinese people, you will meet old friends and new, wherever you go. Here is the location for the poem reading gala that you've just witnessed. Dunhuang is a town with very rich cultural
我们
heritage
的老
and
百姓
tradition.
都在用各种各样的这种方式，或者说是文学的，或者说是这种艺术的，
People who
或者
live
是
here
通过做生意
express
这种方
their
式，也是
feelings
亲身参与了
and
这个东西方
tell
交流的这一个
tell their
这个
stories
壮举。
through various forms, paintings, poems,
其
writings.
实当时呀，做生意的人他不只是就是进行经济贸易交流，那么他去可以带来不同的。
At the time,
我穿一
people
件西域的
did
服装
not
回来，
did not
我学
only
一句
do
西域的话
business.
回来，或者我带点其他的
It
东西
is
回来。
also
所以
more
他们
about the
是
cultures.
多
For
方面渗透式
example,
的这种
the
这种交流和
costumes,
影响。
clothes, and paintings.
现在这边就要
报上你的名字，
陈世文，
来自于何地？
来自于甘肃武威郡，
此次过关去往，
Where are you from?
太望渡
Where
人。
are you going?
在过关期间是否见到有位叫王二的？
没有。
王二是通缉犯，在此次行进过程中，在注意你安全的同时，若发现王二，请及时上报。
And also, please help us to detect a possible suspect on the run named Wang Er.
恭喜您完成来到阳关的历史体验，然后走上阳关大道。
Congratulations. Please proceed to the Yangguan Road.
这个是蒸的酒还是水？
Here is to your, here is a cup of wine to you. Wishing you
一
all
杯
the
第二
best.
杯，因为阳关曲、渭城曲又被称为是阳关三叠。过关要走上阳关道，必须要喝够3碗酒。来，请。
According to tradition, you have to drink 3 bottles to complete the process.
恭喜您过关。
其实这个环节之前是没有彩排过的，这是临时这边，所以就是说，
We did not rehearse this. This is quite surprising.
其实呢，刚才我们这个喝的是水，但是我们可以体会到当时王维的那种。
For the record, I was not drinking wine, that was
再
water.
喝一杯酒。
But
这里这首诗中用的
even
字
though I can feel what Wang Wei said about leaving this place and into the great unknown.
三就是多的意思嘛，可见呢，王维在送他的朋友，他的那种心情。
And this poem was also changed into a opera.
那种对那种石雕，所以。
And at the end of the stage, you can also see a sculpture of the famous poet.
走不了多远又回来了。
也就是
I have
其实
to
我
hold
们
on
每
to
一个
my
游客到这边来
passport.
都会经历这么样一个
对
场景
都。可以
其实刚才他问我的时候，我还挺紧张的，因为这个完全没有彩排过。他也问我有没有见到一个叫王二的。
I was
那也就是
actually
之
quite
前其实
nervous
还是
when
会有
he
一些
asked me
那
about
种
the suspect on the
盗
run.
匪，或者说
That's
是一
quite
些
interesting.
这种不正不义之士，还是会在这边流
But
窜。
back
这也是我们
then,
这边
there
需要
were
设置这
a
个
lot of
的
thieves
这个原因之一。
是呀，
and
从古至今都是有的。
illegals
刚才咱们在
on the
门口，
run.
你没有看到，那门上贴的都是通缉令。当时呢，在这因为这条通道畅通无阻嘛，那过往的人呢也很多。
You probably did not notice that on the wall there are a lot of wanted posters
您前面这样讲
or
到就是
orders
王
for
维
arrest
朋友袁二。
hanging on the wall.
阳关玉门关是一种遥远送别的代名词。其实
So Yangguan and Yumenguan Pass are known as a symbol
您看他们的这种情
for
谊。
sending off your friends.
西出阳关无故人，所以您知道吗？
And it's
现在有很
also
多
a
好朋
symbol
友
of long-lasting
都会来到
friendships.
阳关，来在这里
Many friends actually come
这
to
种情谊呢
Yangguan
是
Pass
什么
today
都代表不了。
and have a drink together
其实刚才我们就是在
as a token of
我
their
们
friendship.
的古遗址那边看了我们的现在就是阳关的一些古往今来的一些历史，然后在阳关的博物馆里面，我们看到了
At the Yangguan Pass, we experience a lot of history. At a museum, we know that the Silk Road is actually closely connected to our daily lives, from what we eat, how we ride, how we travel. It has greatly facilitated our life. It forever inspires us. When I exit the pass with my passport on hand, I really felt what the ancestors were thinking, their excitement and their panic. Despite the hardships ahead, we still need to march forward. It is also an echo to President Xi Jinping's words. Despite the distance, we have to take the first step to reach a harmonious future. So our theme today is poem and faraway destinations. Hopefully you can find your old friends in poems and find poems in faraway places. Dunhuang is a beautiful place with poems and dreams. Hope that all of your dreams can be realized within the bigger dream of the Chinese dream. Last but not least, let's end today's broadcast with another verse of the poem, hoping that if you're interested, you can come here to visit the Yangguan Pass and carry on the spirit of the Silk Road spirit, friendly exchanges and learning from each other, and inclusiveness and openness. That's all for today's live broadcast. Thank you for watching us. Welcome to Yangguan Pass.